I think my mic should be working here. Let me check. Yep, alright. Hello. Uh, I'm just gonna get straight to the main part of this. So I'm the human vocoder, and I just wanted to give my opinion on this newest Warbond and whatnot. I've been playing this game a little bit less recently. There is a lot of controversy as of recent regarding the Warbond, the new Warbond at least, and just generally regarding Arrowhead's like decisions and whatnot with this game. And I'm just here to give my opinion first on the Warbond, and second, sort of a bit on like the general stuff. But if you want to skip past the second part, or like not skip past, if you want to leave before the second part, then be my guest. But at the very least, my basic opinion on the Warbond. All right, first page, obvious. The Gallant, love it. Amazing weapon. Honestly, I actually really like it. First one-handed medium armor pen weapon that isn't the explosive crossbow, which I love the explosive crossbow. Don't get me wrong, but the only pain using it on bots would be that I can't kill the smaller bots very well. I need to bring a whole ass other secondary to do that. With this, I can have both in one. My only thing with it that I have a personal distaste with is the fire rate. It's incredibly fast, but at the same time, that is also good if one of those chainsaw dudes are running at you. Personally, I like to set it to burst. It shoots enough bullets to usually kill the smaller dudes, but it shoots a small enough amount of bullets at a time to usually kill the smaller dudes without wasting too much ammo, while also shooting a large enough amount of bullets per trigger pull that I don't need to constantly spam just to kill a devastator if they're like, whatnot. Also, going full auto against bots in general, since they flinch every time you shoot them, you don't really like to go full auto, because otherwise, if you do, they'll just keep flinching their head back and forth and just barely dodging the bullets, basically. You just want to shoot them once, 3 bullets upward, use the recoil to maybe like headshot them, higher chance, whatever. Anyways, um, yeah, that's really my opinion. And I know I don't have everything in it, but a lot of this is self-explanatory. Like for example, the free spirit. I know a lot of people like it, and I haven't necessarily tried it yet. So take my opinion with a grain of salt, but here's what I think. I think two things. One, why is the speed not actually shown in the stats? I want to know how much it's actually increasing my speed, first off, because like perspectives wise, like if it's less than the amount of speed I gain from medium to light, like let's say for example, this is the heavy, and this is a here. Hold on. Let me get over here real quick. Like for example, medium has 500 speed, this is 550, from that to 50. So if it's less than 50 speed, then it's like, well, why couldn't I just use one of the other like light armors that have a special stat thing where it's like faster speed but like lower health or something, one those like weird like hybrid ones where it for some reason has slightly different stats. I don't know why they made those, or I know why. It's because they were gonna make them the subclasses and whatnot. They're gonna be like, oh, this is like you can have different subclasses of armor where it's like slightly lighter than light or slightly heavier than light, but not quite medium. But then they kind of just scrapped that whole idea for some reason. All right, the Bullet Storm. I've heard a lot of good things about the Bullet Storm. I think it it works as intended. It's got a very low cooldown and it works to clear chaff. And in theory, I could say it could actually be pretty useful against Illuminate and obviously bugs, but obviously I don't think it'll be all that useful on bots. But I could see it maybe being useful to a certain degree. It's just sort of like it's a great addition that I was actually kind of hoping for a while. I'm like, I hope they put in a expendable machine gun at some point because that's the only thing missing. We have an expendable area clear in the napalm. We had like 2 different types of expendable anti-tank. One of them was intended to sort of be more of a actual support weapon with the commando, since you can carry it around and there's only one of them. Um, we were just missing like a expendable like weapon that's more like an assault rifle or like a multi-fire or whatever, something like that. Or even technically you could get like a it would be cool if there was like, for example, the double barrel that you could get. What if there was like an elephant gun? Which I know technically speaking, well, why would that be an expendable? I don't know. I was just like, that would just technically be an idea. That is kind of what the variable is, I guess. Never mind. Point is, moving on. Um, yeah, that's everything in the first tier. The lumber. I like it. Obviously, there is the problem it has with the fire. Um, it doesn't show it a lot in the video because it conveniently they stay at the perfect range, but if you shoot it too close to the ground, for some reason the fire just doesn't collide with the ground and it just goes straight through it and doesn't actually deal damage to anything that's that close to you. And I'm not really sure why. And it doesn't even set the ground on fire either that close to you. It just doesn't work for some reason. I plan on using this against Illuminate so that I can actually efficiently take out like harvesters or especially leviathans without having to worry about just getting instant death lasered and having the one way I can kill them just be instantly destroyed. So yeah, that the flamethrower has a decent amount of ammo and the anti-tank arm is like honestly kind of weird. It's like this weird mix between like the anti-tank and placement, but it's like weaker than the anti-tank and placement. It's like a mix between that and like I guess an autocannon sort of is what it feels like to me, just like vibe based. Cuz like it does a lot more damage than an autocannon, but it has about the same amount of like explosive radius that I would say an armor pen autocannon shot would have. Like for to me it just looks similar. And it obviously doesn't have as much explosive like power as the anti-tank emplacement is. It's just kind of like a weaker emplacement, but you can move it, so I honestly don't mind. It's also got like the reload mechanic like the Bastion does. The missile pistol. I just don't understand what use this thing gives you. If it was heavy, I'd understand. It would be like an ultimatum for bugs, but better because it is required pen, so therefore you could use it against more things with more efficiency and not have to waste stuff, yada yada. But my question is, what is this for? You can't use it against chargers, bile titans, dragon roaches, tanks, hulks, basically any heavy weapon, which you would think a missile would be designed for, but that's besides the point. You can't use it against them. You can't even use it against a like walker, like a strider, not a war strider, but like a regular strider. I forgot what they're called. I'm pretty sure it's just strider. On bots because I'm pretty sure their faceplate has heavy, and even if it doesn't, why would you need a missile pistol for that when the undercarriage and the legs are both way weaker? And I'm pretty sure from what I remember, the missile pistol aims center mass, so just like the spear does. So it would just I don't know if it would even aim there. Regardless, it's also really way too much damage and overkill for that. Like, why would you need all that damage for one Strider? It just sort of seemed like whatever. The only thing I could feasibly see it being useful against would maybe be, I guess, a flesh mob, because like obviously no harvester and the what are they called? The stingrays have heavy armor on most of them, except for like these little like blue strips. But I doubt that the missile will hit there. I don't know how big its explosive radius is, so maybe I could be wrong about that. Maybe it can take out stingrays, but once again, eh. Like, I don't really see the point in that because it would be able to take out two different dudes, one of which barely has any armor, so you should be able to take it out with a regular weapon, or even your support weapon if you like to bring what most people like to bring on Illuminate, machine guns. And then the other one, you should be able to deal with the Stingray because you can deal with the Harvester. There's some way you deal with the Harvester, and there's a likely chance that you can deal with it the same way with the Stingray. Because the Harvester, you're probably going to be using something long range, so the Stingray would be able to have the same thing used against it. It also has less health anyways. So, I mean, yeah. So I just don't really understand what niche this is supposed to fill. It's cool. I like the idea, but I just don't understand how you're supposed to use this. It doesn't tell me how many mags or how many missiles you get. I'd assume maybe like 3. I don't know. It doesn't really matter what the ammo is. What matters is that it's medium armor pen. So I just don't really understand what its use case is. And then there's obviously this, which I could see this being pretty nice. honestly. I really could. I don't know how fast it is, but I could see it being pretty useful. Except, okay, because it's kind of like medium with extra padding, except it also increases the speed and duration of slides, and who knows, maybe it technically makes you faster than medium, like just by a little bit. Like maybe instead of it giving you 50 speed, it's like 75. So technically, it's not only better in base speed, but also the slide stuff. Either way, it could be interesting. And then the last one, there's not really much to talk about here. This emote does actually work with different support weapons, like in the like that one video, like the introductory video. So you can like pose up next to your like support weapon. So that's cool. I used to use the Raider cheer for that, but then they just removed the ability for support weapons or whatever other weapon to work with the Raider cheer. I guess it was a glitch, or maybe they didn't remove it, but now it's no support. I don't know. I used to use it with the chainsaw because it was a two-handed weapon, and it would just so happen that with the Raider cheer, when you did it, it would like keep the chainsaw like horizontal, so you could like pump it up in the air, and it would be all cool and stuff. But whatever. Um, and then there's the breakthrough. I I have like I love the breakthrough in concept. A mech with a basically a huge ass shotgun and a riot shield. I've always loved riot shields just in games in general. So obviously there's a bit of bias here, but that's kind of the problem I have with this. Is that listen, all things can't be perfect. And I understand that. And I understand that making it anti-tank reasonably there would be some problems with it. However, why would you make something have a ballistic shield but then also have its main weapon not be able to deal with like the most prominent problem in bots, that being the tanks? I mean, like, I understand everything has to come with drawbacks, right? But, like, the problem is it also has slower turning radius, too. Or slower turning speed, too. So, I mean, like, theoretically, you could use against bots. And I did. I did use it against bots a good couple times, and it was fun. Oh, 100%. It was fun as hell. And it took out Hulks easily. But that's just the thing. It was really just Hulks. If a tank were to come in, sure, maybe I could tank whatever it shoots at me and then run around to its backside and shoot it. That could work. I could see that working. But my main problem that I had was tank towers. Now, yes, I could do a whole big thing of getting out, throwing something at the tank towers, getting back in, hoping it actually kills the tank towers. You know, but not only would that leave my mech vulnerable to anything else, it's also just a big old pain in the ass. Um, but regardless, I don't even have a problem with the tanks. I just wish that like there was some way that it could more reliably take out tank towers, because I never had a problem with regular tanks versus my mechs in like bots. I had a problem with the tank towers because they would have such immense reach that the second I tried to shoot them and kill them, like say with the Emancipator, I would just like I'd try to get around corners and hide and stuff like that, but since they never move, they never get closer so that I could like maybe maneuver or like whatever. I don't know. It just sort of is like difficult because like you might think them not moving makes it easier, but it doesn't, because if they don't get closer, you can't get around them to the backside. It's like to think about it simply. So let's say you took a Vox engine and put it on a tower and made it a turret. Dear fucking God, I hope that never happens. They're already horrid enough as it is. But still, let's say you took one and put it there. It would be much harder because since the weak spots are on the back, and it also doesn't have a second set of weak spots. Like regular tanks have the orange glowy spot on the back of the turret, but the turret's usually going to spin to face you. But they also, more importantly, have the weak spots underneath those that are the like non-colored vents that you can still shoot and deal decent damage to. And they're like medium or something. Like that's what I like about them that the tank turrets or the tank towers just don't have. And that's kind of like I feel like that should just be different. I don't know. Maybe have some sort of like grenade slot or something like halfway down the tower on like all four sides, or like maybe only two out of the four sides, or maybe even one, and it's like facing inwards towards the fortress, right? Like say that's like the fuel input or something. Like that's how they, or not fuel, ammo input. Say that's like the ammo input, and if you throw a grenade in there, it like it gets shot up into the tank turret like it's ammo, and then it fucking explodes and explodes the tank from the inside. Boom. You got a way to actually deal with tank turrets that doesn't basically just require you to either bring thermites or waste a support weapon, but it does require you to get closer, which inherently provides more risk. I feel like that could be nice. But anyways, continuing on from that, I like the breakthrough against bots. It just wasn't good. It was fun, but it wasn't good. And I could see it maybe having a use against Illuminates too, although it would probably still just get immediately lasered and destroyed, because anything that makes you a larger target on Illuminate just causes you to die instantly. However, that's with the exception of if you're far away. That's why I think the Lumberer would be good against Illuminate, because you could use the Flamethrower against any like smaller units, and then like the anti-tank obviously against anything else, or anything that wouldn't be useful for the fire. But I personally think, as you might assume from the video, that it's probably the best against bugs, because you can technically kill anything with the heavy armor, and I tried it against the new Spore Strain, and God, it is so obvious they just released this because it's a solution to the Spore Strain. Because unlike the regular mechs, where it has a slow-ass stomp, which it does still have it, but unlike the regular mechs where they only have that slow-ass stomp for close range, and potentially whatever weapons they might have, it has the shield bash, which not only has more damage, but also is on a wider area, and also recovers faster. Not to mention, obviously, the fact that it's a shield and can protect against all forms of attacks. Bile, melee, etc. It's kind of obvious that it was just intended to be a form of a solution to that problem. Which, man, I love this game. But I just, like, once again, Oxygenator, very clearly just intended to be a solution to the problem of the Spore Strain. Because, like, the only other solution that I've found with Spore Strain is you just fire. Maximize the amount of fire you bring, because fire prevents the stupid spores from erupting every single time that something dies. I genuinely just hope that they, in some way, change that. I don't know what exactly, but I just think that either A, only certain enemies should do that, like only certain enemies should have said spores. Like maybe make the warriors have those spores, but not the hunters, because or like the scavengers, because the hunters and the scavengers are gonna get all up in your grill, and you can't use fire against them half of the time without it just immediately blowing back into your face. Or if you're using a shotgun, sure, it could work, but there's a 50-50 chance it dies from the pellet damage and not the fire. Although I guess it is. Wait, no, I forgot. It's not dying to fire, it's dying while burning. But still, I just also think it's weird because I've used the flames, and they say that they scare away smaller enemies. And it works on the warriors, works a charm. But why doesn't it work on the actual smaller enemies like the scavengers or the hunters? I get maybe why for like balancing purposes, I guess, so that they can still rush you, but kind of the whole point of a flamethrower is area control. If they're just allowed to walk through that area control, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? Like, I don't know. I'm just confused on what they mean by smaller bugs. Maybe they clarified it and I just hadn't heard, but as far as I know, it just doesn't work on scavengers or hunters, which are the ones that you want it to work against the most by far. But yeah, I think the fact that shooting them or having them be burning while they die, preventing the spores, makes sense. However, I think it should be even further. What if, when the fire contacts it, like with gas, it makes the spores disappear and it deals damage to things within an area? Or better yet, just make the spores themselves deal more damage in an area. So that while yes, it does help, like the bugs, it also harms them at the same time. And not to mention, it also makes the actual weakness of fire better. You know? Like, it feels like fire is supposed to be the most powerful thing, but it doesn't feel like the most powerful thing, it feels like the only thing that works against them. Because like any other form of weaponry just is an entire no-go because you just cannot use basically anything else without having way harder of a time. It just sucks that that's like the only real viable option. I just wish that maybe there was something different about it. I had those two proposed ideas. Maybe I don't know, like maybe make it so that like the buff, like, cause like it seems like the buff lasts permanently. Because I've been chased, or at the very least for way longer than you'd think. Because I've been chased for like at least a solid good couple minutes, or like a minute or two, at least, by bugs that were very clearly faster than they normally would be. I don't know why it should last for longer than like maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute. Like actual real adrenaline or frenzy like that in humans or otherwise doesn't normally last for much longer than a couple minutes. So, like, just crunch that down into the game formula time, because, like, realistically, you're not getting an operation like this done actually in 30 minutes. I mean, I know technically in lore you are, but, like, everything in this game, and in games in general, time is crunched down. So that you, as the player, don't have to spend real, actual world multiple hours doing something in game that would take multiple hours. So like just crunch that down to like 1 or 2 minutes at most, or like maybe 30 seconds. 45 seconds. That'd be like a perfect amount. It's still a decent amount of time, but it wears off eventually. And then once it does wear off, either make it to where they're like stunned maybe for a second or two, or at the very least, put on like a 10 or 15-second delay before they can get enraged again. Because from what I've seen, they can just automatically get re-enraged again as like if it wears off. They can just do it as soon as it wears off, if it ever does. I don't know if it does or not. I just think there should be way more like drawbacks to that sort of thing with how it's just simply making them faster. Not to mention the fact that spores make us slower because it's the same effect that acid has on us, where it slows us down, and then it makes them faster now. So imagine like as a new player, right? Even on like difficulty 4, which by the way, the sheer amount of enemies that spawns in spore burst strains is ridiculous. I've seen, I shit you not, across like 5 or 6 missions that I've played against the spore burst strain, I've seen maybe like 5 chargers. I wish I was under exaggerating. Like 5 chargers. At most 10. But I don't think 10. And if you think about it, 10 chargers across, and mind you, this is like difficulty 7, by the way. Difficulty 7 or 8. Normally what I play on. About 10 missions, difficulty 7 or 8. And I've seen at most 10 chargers. Or, wait, what? About 5 missions, 10 chargers. I got it backwards. About 5 difficulty 7 missions, 10 chargers. That's about 2 chargers per mission. Can you imagine? Like, can you understand how, well, you can clearly understand how low that is compared to any other mission type on any other like faction? Also, an irk I have with this is the fact that.
The enemy has launched a surprise attack on one of our planets. It needs our
Hold on a
aid.
minute, let's look here. So, it was originally on like around this area, right? Now it's Predator Strain, but like originally the places we were tasked with going Luxuriant right here, right? These are like the planets that have the Spore Burst strain. Are you noticing something about that? About these planets? Yeah, it's that they're not only not in the gloom, but also that it doesn't say anything about them having Spore Burst strain. That is weird. Why is it so? Why is the what? Why is the icon so large? Is that like like the entire faction? I don't know. That's weird. Anyways, so like imagine as like a new player, right? Going like, oh, I see. So the big thing is over at this planet. Okay, I go down here. You know, you get into a mission, right? Here, I'll even show you. Let me look here. Difficulty, like, let's put it down to like 4, right? It's like they're a new-ish player. They're just getting to know the game. They haven't even seen their first Bile Titan yet. Or they maybe they have occasionally in like a mission. In like a special mission or like just in general, maybe once or twice. And they go here. Let me see if I can find like an eliminate mission to truly show like actually no, spread democracy, right? They come down and they don't see a single charger. They just see swaths and swaths and swaths of these little bugs. And they're like, oh, sick, this seems cool. And they explode when they die too. Aw, sick. And they shoot them. And immediately, not only are they slowed down for like a good bit, but also immediately after they're slowed down, bugs get up to them, get sped up as they're trying to run away, and they just fucking rush him down, instantly claw him to death. He thinks like, ah, damn, I must have just gotten unlucky. I'll try again. And they go in for another mission, they go in to try again, right? And then when they do, or they not even just another mission, they respawn, reinforce, they keep going. Maybe get another good couple kills in, you know, whatnot. And then, once again, a single hunter, or like 2 scavengers, run up. They, of course, instinctively, since they're that close, dive away and like punch them, or dive away and shoot them. They still explode. The person is still within that radius, despite trying their hardest to get away. And then they're slowed down. And then the second the rest of the bugs come in, they're sped up, and then they die. Here, this is Rupture Strain, isn't it? Is it Rupture Strain? Or Spore Burst Strain? Is it not Spore Burst Strain? Oh no, it is. Oh yeah, also, seeing as how we've seen a Hive Guard, right, I will just touch for a second on, like, this most recent subject of, like, the fact of... Yeah, okay, see that, right there. I couldn't even see him, and he called in a bug breach. Look at this. This is on difficulty 4, which I guess doesn't seem that bad, but... Here, hold on a minute, let me just... You know, I naturally, I kill one of them for self-defense, and then... I'm running away, I'm just trying to get away. Maybe not making those perfect decisions, because, you know, I'm new, and this is difficulty 4. And whatever. That could have been a skill issue, you know, I'll write that off, right? As a new player, decently, I might think, okay, fine. You know, that was my bad. And I know a new player wouldn't even have the weapons I would either, probably. I mean, they might have the Bushwhacker, but probably not the... Well, actually, they might have the Explosive and not the Bushwhacker, because a lot of people say, hey, you should get the Explosive first, like the Explosive Warbond first. Okay. I don't even know where the fuck it just sent my supply backpack. That's also been a problem I've recently noticed, is, like, stuff like supply backpacks, or backpacks in general, or weapons even... Seems like sometimes now, more than ever, they can just get sent for some reason. Like, they just get sent flying by some random force of something that you can't understand. Like, maybe like a spore burst explosion or something, and they can actually get flung. I don't know. It's weird. But yeah, here. I know I didn't bring sentries, and normally you would for this type of mission. So that I'll take that into account. But like you already saw, just how fast they were and how many they were. And I'm pretty sure this is a spewer strain, because for the life of me, I would almost never see spewers in Spore Burst planets. Which, like I said, Spore Burst planets, they should really say when they have them, because let's be honest, it's a faction. It is 100% a faction. Speaking of which, why is the Spore Charger not here? Like, I think maybe I've seen it like once or twice, the Spore Charger appear, but I don't think I've ever seen, once or twice a charger appear, but I don't think maybe I've seen once that a Spore Charger has appeared. And it got me thinking, why are Spore Chargers green? They're the same spores, right? At least in theory. considering that there are no real... Okay, there are the Bile Warriors, the ones that spew acid upon death, or like, you know, acid explosion on death. Those are green, and that it honestly kind of looks similar to the Charger. But the Charger is a Spore Charger and not an Acid Charger for two reasons. Because one, it has spores on it, and two, because it's called that in the files, and just by everyone, basically, and no one's corrected them. But, like... Also, something I've noticed about this faction, too, is that they tend to get behind you more because of the speed. Now, that wasn't necessarily a speed thing, that was a me thing, I didn't notice them. But, like, they'll overshoot because of how fast they are. Here. Okay, that was a skill issue. But, continuing on with what I was saying. Oh, right, I was going to talk on this earlier. Hive guards, I don't know what this decision was based on. I don't know why they made it heavy. I don't know what the point was. So many people are like, just shoot around it, bro. But, like, I saw something that made me, like, was like, oh, yeah, duh. That's why I'm also against it. You know, I was against it to begin with, but I'm like, oh, yeah, that is a really good reason. It is a very important part of a beginner Helldiver's journey, getting a Hive Guard and seeing, oh hey, so this weapon works against them, aka the whatever, right? The Adjudicator or the Penetrator or whatever. Hey, this weapon works against them, the medium one, but I have to sacrifice capacity to deal with that. Or I can use a light armor weapon with this same good stuff, but need to aim better in order to use it effectively. Right? Like, it shows trade-offs. Now it's just like, oh yeah, here's one of your first impressions with the game. Aim for the weak spots or never hit them. Aim for the weak spots or you don't get to damage this one. That's also kind of my problem with the Vox engine, is it's kind of just like, aim for the weak spots, like you need to hit them, you need to somehow miraculously get within their 4,000 meter range without getting eviscerated. Go around to the back, which has a 50-50 chance of being flooded with bots protecting it, and hit the weak spots and also throw a grenade in while not getting evaporated by any other bot in order to do basically any damage to it, because the only things that can consistently kill it are either A, the ultimatum, something you only get from a Warbond, or B, the leveler, something you also only get from a Warbond. Or wasting like 2 whole 500 kgs or like a 500 kg in a rail cannon strike or some shit, like some ridiculous combo of high cooldown things. You know, like, I'm just gonna do this. But like, now you might think, oh, well, it hasn't seemed too bad, right? So far. And yes, you would be correct in that assumption. But keep in mind, I'm a level 115. With not only knowledge, which I'm not saying I'm amazing at the game, but I know how these creatures work, right? Not only the knowledge that fire prevents the spores from bursting, but also the knowledge to bring a supply pack, and the knowledge to have thermites, and the ability, not necessarily ability, but have the Warbonds in order to give me both the Bushwhacker and the explosive crossbow. You know, like, anyone with like a Liberator, or like even an Adjudicator, or like a pump shotgun, unless it's fire-based, are gonna be drowning right now, basically. Not to mention, like, keep in mind as well, I was still very new to the game when I got to, like, difficulty 6. And this is difficulty 4. Like, Bile Titans can't even spawn here, right? And you saw how I could still immediately get rushed down. Now, admittedly, yes, you might think, well, you used your stuff wrong. You have a Bushwhacker, you know, you don't have a great close range. And I will say, admittedly, yes. But you can see, you've seen as well, how despite the fact that it says, like, you saw right there, he was attacking into the Aether. But these small bugs, see, they're just ignoring it. They're just still walking forward. They're not attacking into the Aether. See, look, exactly what I'm talking about. Them just, like, doing that. And then these guys, sure, like they didn't like keep walking forward a ton, but that was because they had to like, you know, stop and roar or whatever. Like they did the thing. Right? You saw how that one still managed to get to me. Despite the fact that I was actively basically lasering them in the face with fire. Now I know that terminology doesn't really make sense, but you get the point. And the only reason why I've been doing good so far, if you've noticed, is that since that first patrol, there's basically been 0 hunters. And that's my main problem with this faction, is that everything else is fine. The scavengers are fine, the warriors are fine, the titan is actually really great. I like the new mechanics for the bile spewing. Except it's, you know, it's like explosive and it pushes you around, you know, that's cool. And it doesn't actually kill you super hard, too. It doesn't, like, ragdoll you and prevent you from getting... It, like, ragdolls you and prevents you from getting up, but it doesn't ragdoll you and have immense accuracy, so you're just guaranteed death if you get hit by one particle. Right? Like, it's decent. I like it. Speaking of which, like I said, with the charger, I don't know why the Spore Charger's spores are green when all these are orange, and I don't know why it doesn't really appear all that often in this faction, seemingly, despite it being of the same notoriety. Okay, wait, hold on. Hold the horses here. I swear this is more warriors than you would know. Like, I could be tweaking. You know, like I said, skill issue. Potentially, but I swear this is more enemies than you would normally get on difficulty 4. Especially warriors, like, I mean, I think, at least. Like, normally, I would assume that you would get more bile spewers, or, like, I guess, chargers. That's what my problem is with this, is that it seems like chargers have a much lower rate of spawning on this faction. Which, I mean, on one hand, I can get. But on the other hand, I don't. Because maybe, who knows, maybe chargers interact with the spores and become faster when they're charging. I don't think they do, but maybe. Right? Or maybe they thought it was unfair that everything else is fast while also having chargers. But the thing is, it's very simple. It might seem like it's unfair balance-wise, but actually, chargers would lower the amount of these dudes spawning, and therefore would lower the chance that these dudes would bum rush you. See, look, why does it affect that guy and make him attack randomly, but not the fucking hunters? Anyways. And would make less of the Spore Burst guys spawn, and therefore would let you get bum rushed less, and therefore it would be more balanced for chargers to be there. You know, I know it's a lot of different lines of thinking, right? A lot of different branches of thought for Arrowhead, I guess, but that's just how it is. But yeah, like, I'm not saying this should be a cakewalk for me. I don't like it when games on lower difficulties, they just become obsolete, you know, for higher difficulties. Or for higher, like, level players, right? Obviously, no one likes a game becoming easy. But, I'm just saying that, like, reasonably, it just seems different. I like the planets. They look good. But it just all seems a bit absurd. You saw how that hunter wasn't affected at all by the fire. It was just kind of still jumping at me. I feel like they did the change to the few Oh, it predicted me. But I feel like they did the fire change to the few enemies that we didn't need it on. I don't need to be able to stun or, like, basically sterilizer confuse. Like, it's doing the same thing as the sterilizer, by the way. That is what's happening. I don't need to be able to basically sterilize or confuse the heavier enemies. That's what the sterilizer is for. I don't need it to do that. Especially because the sterilizer's whole point is that it's good against, like, stun locking heavies and whatnot like that. It's good at confusing them, but bad against crowds because it does low. Or, good against heavies, but bad damage against them. Bad against crowds because there's so many of them, it's harder to apply it all and keep it all on them at once. But good against crowds with damage. So it's like, good status against heavies, bad damage against, or good damage against small, but bad status. Flamethrower does both, basically. or that's sort of the intent, is it does good damage against both heavies and small enemies while also doing good, like, area of effect damage. However, the drawback being, 1, friendly fire, 2, I'm pretty sure ammo, 3, time to fire, since it has, like, that, you have to, like, warm it up, right? And 4, also, I think it just generally, the status effect, while it is good, is not as good. But, like, my question is, why make the heavy ones, the ones with thicker hides, the ones that are scared by fire and confused and swiping at it, and then make the ones that are smaller just entirely just resistant to it? Like, I'm pretty sure that is actually genuinely I've never seen it not blow up when you whatever. I'm pretty sure that is actually genuinely the exact opposite of what everyone asked for, to my knowledge. I just like, that's what the thing is with this faction. If it actually confused smaller bugs when you shot them with fire, this faction would be great because fire would actually, like, do its intended job and would counter these guys properly. But you saw how he just fucking, hit Song through the fire and flames, just ran through them to get me. Like, and, like, you might think, well, just hit him with a melee, but melees aren't that, like, not only do they interrupt the fire itself, but they're not, you might think that's good enough, but for one, half the time, despite the fact I'm shooting directly at them, they won't catch fire, I'll melee them, they'll explode on me anyways. Not only that, but I swear to you that those little scavenger bugs and even sometimes the hunters will just do this. Like, they'll, like, jiggle strafe towards you to try to bait out a melee swing before trying to hit you. Swear to God, they'll do that sometimes. Anyways, you've seen the sort of semi-absurdity that this faction can provide. It doesn't seem that bad, but I'm alone as a difficulty 100 on difficulty 4. I don't mean to go all pirate software. I used to work at Blizzard, repeating this over and over again, but you get the point. It's just, I think there needs to be more chargers, and honestly, I think more brood commanders, and maybe the same amount of, or more spewers. And keep the same amount of warriors, honestly. Warriors are fine because they aren't that fast to begin with, so speeding them up just makes them, like, a more interesting enemy. Because now they're like hunter speed, so you can still outrun them, but they're much bigger of a threat regardless. Because they're or warriors, and they have a lot more health. And stuff like that. It's still interesting. Because if you have more chargers, and you have more brood commanders, which brood commanders, I'm pretty sure, in this faction spawn like alpha warriors and not spore burst, right? It would decrease the amount of spore burst enemies by spawning non-spore burst enemies in, decrease the amount of spore burst enemies by spawning other enemies like the charger in, which actually would be cool if there was a genuine spore burst charger, because it would not only, like, there already is, actually, it's just not the right color and doesn't spawn that often here, surprisingly. And if you do that, less of the small problem enemies would spawn, and therefore lead to less unfair amounts of crowding and high-speed dudes that run up to you, guarantee damage by just being within your vicinity, and dying unless they're on fire, in which case there's even bigger of a threat to you because you can set yourself on fire too. And then if there were more bile spewers, it would be the same sort of shtick where, it would be that there are now less enemies that would run up to you, kill you, yada yada, you get the point. I love the fact that I actually really love the Rupture Titans design. I love it. It's a great design. It looks cool and it has good mechanics. And I do actually Genuinely, I want a rupture spewer. Or not ruptured. I keep saying rupture. Spore burst spewer. I want that. Because then, not only will it have its own unique identity, very cool, but also, if there were spore burst spewers, it would guarantee that on spore burst planets, or ones with spore burst enemies, that more of those would spawn on higher difficulties, and therefore, once again, like I said, not lead to giantly massive, unfair crowds of supersonic speed, still kill you in 2 hits, even if you're in like heavy or medium armor enemies. Like I know it's not actually guaranteed, but like light armor is the most effective against bugs, and don't even think about using heavy armor to resist their hits because you're just going to be too slow now. Or same thing with medium armor, you're just going to be too slow. Like the only reason why I can survive in light armor is because of the fact that I am one, at least decently fast to begin with, and two, I have more stamina and better stamina regen, so I can dive further more often better. Well, okay, I don't know about the further and better part, but I can dive more often and not lose too much stamina. But yeah, the one thing I can say is I think that the precedent this is setting is kind of annoying, yes. And while yes, I do think they gotta make money somehow, and while yes, I do think definitely Sony is also dipping their hand in the cookie jar here and sort of, influencing their decisions, I don't think it's all them either. I think that, it's kind of topical to how this one thing that's happening with me and my friends is, or me and this one friend I used to have, or kind of still have. We're on like neutral terms now. A lot of people had a problem with him in the past because of the simple fact that there was this one person that they were really close with that was very problematic, clearly, but they wouldn't kick them out. They tried to help them to get better and sort of not necessarily insisted, but due to their not removing them, they were going against what everyone was saying and voting that they should do, is as in removing them, right? And naturally, people got mad at both the problematic person and that guy, and everyone just directed their anger towards him because they couldn't tell the person who was problematic about it because they just wouldn't listen to anyone other than that guy. So they naturally got mad at the one guy that they could express their concerns to about that person. And yeah, the main reason why everyone got mad was because it seemed like she wasn't changing. She, whatever. It seemed like they weren't changing. The problematic person wasn't changing, and that was just simply because of many different factors. The It didn't seem like they were talking about the issues that other people were bringing up, but they were. It was just the simple fact that they were doing it in private and no one really asked about it, so everyone just assumed that they weren't talking about it. And a lot of other things. Now, of course, obviously, I'm not saying names or anything like that, and I didn't even mean to say gender really that much, but all I'm saying is a lot of things can be assumed due to lack of communication, especially when it comes to the worst. Of course, we as humans generally just tend to assume the worst. It's kind of in our nature, and without communication, that is what we assume, right? And the thing is with Arrowhead is it seems like they're assuming the worst, kinda. Like, for one, they are communicating things to the players, but also sometimes they just kind of lie about it, which is weird, right? Or sometimes they communicate things to the players. They say, hey, we hear your concerns and we'll fix them. But like many people say, it's like monkey's paw balancing. They fix one thing and then break another. Or they fix one thing and then turn another thing into a different direction that no one wanted and no one asked for. because and of course everyone naturally has outrage about it because they didn't communicate that they were going to do this. They'll communicate, hey, we're making changes in your guys' favor, but they won't communicate that they'll also make other changes that people don't like. And I'm not saying that they have to communicate every single possible change that they're going to make in the future just in case they don't like it, but I would feel it would be relevant when it basically goes directly against whatever other people are wanting, right? Like, for example, in my opinion, as far as I've heard from anyone, no one has ever said bugs are too easy. People have said occasionally that bugs are easier or easiest out of the factions, but that's intended, obviously, because they require the not only are they the ones shown the most in promotional material, obviously, but also they're the ones that at first required not only the least amount of specialized weaponry, but also were designed for the weaponry that you were given at the start. So naturally, you sort of phase out of fighting bugs as you get better gear and higher level because you want to experience the other factions more. But it seems like with this most recent update, Arrowhead is trying to make them more powerful, but that's not their point. I'm not saying that they are a obstacle to be overcome. Obviously all enemies are, but I'm not saying they're a faction that you fight a little bit and then once you get high enough level you never look back. Because obviously there's major orders, and obviously sometimes you just feel like fighting them. But what I'm saying is with, like, for example, the Hive Guards becoming heavy, these new Spore Burst strains being absolutely cracked and just having basically no chargers for some reason. Like, it just all sort of seems like they're just gearing towards making bugs more powerful now. Like, they they started off with automatons, right? They made them more powerful. They added the War Strider. They had them be the most powerful thing at first, you know. Obviously, rockets were too much. They nerfed them, but eventually they added the cyborgs and the War Strider and the Vox engine, which were just really pounding everyone and being incredibly difficult. They've toned them back a little bit since, and they've actually made more changes on the War Strider, making them easier to kill, which I amend. But of course, it's only on those tiny little leg joints in between their legs and their waist. But of course, I understand that that's because it's to promote better aim, and I enjoy that, right? But they've had their ups and downs. And the Illuminate, of course, just recently got their new stuff, right? Mindless Masses, aka being just the Illuminate but without a lot of the voteless. Like, there's less voteless units and there's just no flying or very minimal flying voteless units, which people really enjoy because they just hated the flying voteless units, and for good reason. They're really fucking annoying. The actual, like, distance that they can fly away after taking damage is fucking absurd, combined with the accuracy and the fact that their weapon is burst and the fact that each one does upwards of like a third of your health even in medium armor is just kind of a bunch of combinations of things in an enemy that people really don't like. So, of course, people take a liking to Mindless Masses because it's just the good part that they like about Voteless, that being the Mindless Masses, the horde killing, and they make it more of like a more of the forefront. I do wish there were more unique units in Mindless Masses, like maybe a Super Flesh Mob, you know, like the Super Flesh Mob that replaces Harvesters. You know, it's like a really big one. I don't fucking know. I just think that would be cool. Or like maybe like some sort of weird flesh drake that's like not like a wing drake, but it's like made out of flesh and somehow it manages to fly and it's made out of a bunch of voteless and like it like it replaces the stingray and it flies around and drops voteless, or like it flies around and drops like flesh mobs occasionally, and like its main attack is just that, is that it flies around and drops enemies, and those enemies like they crash onto the ground and there's like a 50-50 chance that they just die, and have like a big shockwave around them when they drop down, right? Like they have a shockwave around them when they drop down, and each enemy, whether it's voteless or like flesh mob or whatever, have like a 50-50 chance of just dying upon impact, and then the rest of them will get up and attack. So it's kind of like a mixture of like an airstrike and like enemy spawning, but it's like balanced in such a way. And then there's the appropriators, which I enjoy because I get more Illuminate stuff. I love Illuminate, I really do. I think they're a great designed faction in terms of um I love their lore. I love the fact that they're the only one that could theoretically actually oppose Super Earth on a larger scale. I love the general vibe, the aesthetic of them, their look. And as a faction, like balance wise, sadly I think that's kind of where they fall off. Like I like the I like the I like them, right? I like them. I just feel like the Harvester is strange. Like, I like the laser. The laser's fine. It's a incredibly powerful weapon that is unique to them. Fine. I'm alright with that. Same thing with the arc stuff and the shields and blah, blah, blah. I just have a problem with the fact of defense missions. Harvesters, naturally, have, like, the main weak spot is the little connectors in between their legs and their waist. Just like a War Strider, right? But the problem is, not only do they walk, therefore those things go up and down, forward and back, making them harder to hit naturally, but also mid-fight with a bunch of little voteless constantly trying to stagger you, it's a lot harder to hit them with most things. Especially with how fast those voteless are, or like how fast how the Illuminate like overseers can stagger you with their shots or like them hitting you or whatever. Right? Naturally can be hard, but it's fine because they don't normally spawn a ton of them, and even when they do, they're slow enough that you can run away, back off, sort of just regroup, and like shoot them from afar while you have the ability to. Problem with defense missions though, you just can't do that. Does it make it impossible? No. If you have 4 people and all of those 4 people have some decent anti-tank method, then yes. Otherwise, though, normally your anti-tank method is too slow either to reload or to charge up or whatever in order to take out the amount of harvesters that they tend to drop when it's like by yourself or with 2 people. That's also kind of the problem I have with defense missions on any faction is I just feel like inherently they're just too difficult with 1 person or 2 people, and they're just not really they're possible, but they're not like they're very clearly not balanced to be in such a way, and that can make it fun, but at the same time, when I'm getting my balls stomped in on Illuminate like difficulty 5 or like difficulty 6 defense mission by myself because I was just like, oh, maybe I'll test this out, and I get absolutely annihilated because I just didn't want to bring the most like, you know, the most meta like anti-tank emplacement or like fucking I guess lumberer for example as well, or like the bastion. I just get annihilated and I'm like, well dang, that's great. That's cool. And I just feel kind of annoyed, you know. And that's why I'd bring the lumberers, because at this point I've realized that despite them being the faction that is resistant to explosives, you kind of need explosives, like anti-tank stuff, despite that, because of both, the needing them to actually be able to consistently kill the Harvester's weak spot, because hitting it with a machine gun is so AIDS, but also the Leviathan, which I didn't even touch on. Like, the Leviathan is so bad in design, not in terms of balance, but in terms of where it is. The Leviathan on bots would fit in perfectly. It's an anti-tank thing, it has lots of health, it flies, you already bring long-range anti-tank on bots anyways, it's the perfect fit. Right? It fits in nicely, it doesn't screw up a bunch of loadouts. But on Illuminate, it fucks literally everything up. On Illuminate, most of the time, you're not usually gonna, like, even though it does work and it's good, you're not usually gonna bring a super consistent anti-tank because it doesn't get as much use as, like, an anti-material rifle or, like, an autocannon, right? And then fucking Leviathan just struts in, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll die. Because if you don't submit a slot to either recoilless rifle, spear, which spear doesn't even work against harvesters half the time because that little prong on the top of them, or anti-material rifle, which has a 50 or anti-tank emplacement. I'm dumb. Which has a 50-50 chance of being instantly lasered or killed by voteless or whatever, or Bastion, which sucks to aim, and despite the fact that it's a tank and can move, half the time the Leviathan will run away before you can kill it anyways, or will go out of sight but behind a building or whatever, or still manage to laser you to death. You know, like, there's just so many different options to kill a Leviathan, and they all suck balls, especially having to bring them on Illuminate when the rest of your loadout is entirely centered around, at most, bringing heavy pen things. I've just, at this point, I've submitted and just started bringing the Epoch, because that's the only thing that is good-ish against heavy, but is still like an anti-tank sort of option that is possible to use. It's just so weird, and I don't like it. But the Appropriators mechs, though, I love those. Those are great. Amazing design, they look cool, and they function well. And for the faction that they're in, they fit amazingly. Theme-wise, they're cool. And obviously, I just genuinely love the... I love the new stuff with Illuminate with the ruins. I want to learn so much about the Illuminate. I want to learn what their society is like, their culture. I want to learn their language. Like it's very interesting to me because they seem like this sort of like honor-bound like society. I don't know why. Like they seemed like in Helldivers 1, which I actually researched them. I didn't play Helldivers 1, but I researched them and also the rest of the factions. They seemed like this very honor system based faction, like sort of like samurai, if you will, right? Like a lot of their lower tiered units or a lot of their lower skill guys were sent out to fight, and if they survived and whatnot, they might be able to be adept enough or have enough time to learn and understand psychic powers and stuff like that. And like their highest tiered dudes don't even fight with their hands, they like sit in chairs and use psychic powers and stuff like that. And they have these like great big like observational things, like the Great Eye, which is from Helldivers 1, where it's like a big observational thing that like floats around and gains data and also shoots giant fucking lasers. You know, like they seem like a very informationally based, honor bound society. And then they almost got fucking eradicated by Super Earth in Helldivers 1, despite the fact that they didn't have weapons of mass destruction. So they basically just got almost eradicated and had almost all their tech given up in the first war and had to retreat back to their home planet. And then they said fuck all that shit about honor, and now they do what they do now. Which honestly, I don't even blame them. And I'm going to be so honest, I wanted to see what would happen with the Void. Like the Illuminate Voids. Oh wait, no. They still have it. It's just in a much smaller area. I guess we stopped it from spreading. Something like that. But actually, wait, no. Is the Illuminate Void where the Appropriators came from? I don't think so. Maybe it is. I don't know. I assumed, and I honestly am still hoping this, that later on, they're going to have these guys. Like, they're going to have this. And it's going to spread, and it's going to spread, and it's going to spread, and it's going to spread out to, like, most of the Illuminate, like, factions, or the sectors, right? At least, like, 4 or 5 of them. Right? And stay with me here. All of it one day, all of it one day is going to, like, there's going to be a big, like, fucking supernova-esque flash. And we'll look, and we'll see giant towering city planets, and, like, fucking ships and ships and ships galore, and it turns out they weren't just building another invasion force. They were transporting their entire sector of the universe that they live in to our sector of the universe. And they plan to teleport it over to us and effectively blitzkrieg us with all of their units and all of their factories suddenly being way closer to the war zones and just try to
Any
bum
idea
rush
your
us.
operations, Helldiver?
And they'll have
Just
a
when you
bunch
think
and
we
they'll
have
have like a good
Helldivers,
couple new
we find
units
another.
like maybe they'll have like even more heavily armored overseers. Maybe they'll have leviathans but like or maybe they'll have harvesters but like extra armored or like maybe they'll have, the great eye or maybe they'll even have like I don't know, like they'll have like voteless that are armored and maybe they'll even have more fully autonomous constructs like
Every system
like
is
just
suited to
more
certain
unique
purposes.
fully autonomous
For the best.
constructs like some sort of weird combination between like a stingray and a harvester where it like instead of it shooting down photon like bombs or whatever it like floated around and shot lasers. I don't know. I'm just hoping that they do something cool like that with Illuminate. Because God knows with bots, they've already done their thing with going to Cyberstan, which I don't hate the cyborgs by any means. I just think that the Vox engine kind of just wholly ruined cyborgs for me with how annoying the Vox engines were on release and how annoying they still are to kill. It kind of just ruined them. And then with the Spore shit, it also has kind of like ruined bugs a little bit for me. Not fully, same thing with bots. It's not like it's fully ruined bots, but like I just don't really want to fight on cyborgs ever. And if they give me the option to, I will almost never fight on spore bugs ever if they don't revert these changes. Illuminate are fine though. Honestly, Illuminate are fine. I wish they would change the Leviathan, but I haven't really seen any Leviathans recently. Maybe they've down tuned their spawn rate or something. I don't know. I just don't like the way that they're just kind of smushed in there with heavy or with anti-tank armor and just kind of not explained and just like, hey, fuck you, you just deal with it. Because like, if they were like the Hive Lords, where only one of them can spawn per mission, and they're kind of just like an area of effect thing, where it's like there's one of them, avoid it, then yeah. But like multiple of them can spawn at a time, so it kind of just seems like overkill
The
sometimes. I
hour
don't
of
know.
our next victory rapidly
What
approaches.
time is it? It's like,
Let us
okay, okay.
cleanse the galaxy of
Well,
aliens.
with that being said, what I can say about this newest update is it was underwhelming, to be honest with you. It's kind of honestly got the controversies and semi bad decisions that I come to expect from the updates a lot of the times. I don't expect them to be perfect to begin with, and I sure as hell don't expect them to make better decisions by now. But, hell if I'm not at least going to give my opinion. Well, I guess honestly that's it. I just wish that I like the content with the breakthrough and the lumber. I agree. It's kind of weird that now of all times they're deciding that vehicles can be put in war bonds. And I agree with a lot of the stigmatisms about like how they only fix things or change things if it's regarding a new war bond that they're releasing so that it can sell the war bond better. Just sort of corporate greed and whatnot. I can see the sort of frameworks that they're putting that they wanted to make a game that was niche, a game that only certain people would like or whatever. And I honestly think they're doing this on purpose at this point. Not like making a purposefully bad game that people hate, but to a certain degree, making changes in the game that are purposefully intended to be controversial, not only to squeeze more money out, but mostly so that they can get less of a player base. Like it's sort of like a weird conspiracy I have, is that they're doing these changes to make the game way less and less mainstream and to cater more and more to the people that love to shove cactuses up their urethra. And eventually, once they've only got those people left, all the people that glaze the game constantly and say they never make bad decisions and only dive on difficulty 10 so they can die over and over again, then they'll finally stop making decisions like this. And then what's going to happen is they're going to start losing those players too. And then they're going to die. Because in their greed, their want to have such a devoted and small fan base, and also in the fact that, they're doing this as well because it just gives them money, but that's just sort of an added bonus. In that greed, that narcissism to a certain degree, it'll just lead to them finally getting what they wanted, but just like their update patches, the monkey's paw will furl, and it will lead to their downfall. Well, I guess that's all the time I have for today. Thank you for watching. I've been the Human Vocoder.